Hello everybody, I'm here today to show you how to wax field tiles. Now a field tile is basically it's a professional word for a floor tile or a backsplash tile. It's the plain flat tile. These are handmade field tiles, and handmade tiles are done by hand. So we glaze these tiles by hand, and in order to glaze them and dunk them into a bucket of glaze, you can't allow there to be glaze stick to the back of the tile. The back of the tile is where you set it onto the kiln shelf. If you have glaze that melts to the kiln shelf, it not only ruins your kiln shelf, but it also ruins the tile. It's a very important process to ensure that the tile does not stick to the kiln shelf. So one of the methods, best method for the types of tiles that I'm making, for the thickness, is to wax the backs with a material, a substance, a solution called Wax Resist. This is a material, it's very common, it's one of the necessities when you're a ceramic artist. Wax Resist is exactly what it sounds like. It's a type of wax, similar to paraffin wax, which is a wax that you use in canning. Canning fruit and things of that nature, an old-fashioned way of doing it. But it's a liquid wax at room temperature, and you get it in a gallon jug, and it comes in usually green or white, and you add water to it, and then you use a brush to apply it to the back of the tile. Now, this is it appears very simple, but there's a little bit of a trick to it, because the paraffin wax does a really good job. The Wax Resist does a very good job at repelling anything it gets on. So it's kind of a two-step process. The first thing you need to do is just wax the whole entire surface of the back of the tile. You can use one brush or two. Here's a sponge brush, and that's a kind of traditional brush. The tricky part kind of is it's also very important to wax the side of the tile. Now when you wax the side of the tile, you want to only wax halfway down. So if you have a thicker tile, it's a little bit easier to do. The reason why we're doing this is because when I glaze the field tiles, I dunk them. I completely submerge them in a bucket of glaze. There's some tiles that are really, like I said, that are really thick, where you can hold on to it and dunk the surface carefully. And some glazes have different properties to them, so they adhere to the clay differently. But the type of glazes that I use and types of clay that I use, you need to do that waxing around the edge. And believe it or not, the waxing around the edge, it just helps you, because once you glaze it, you still have to go with the sponge over this to get all the little teeny driplets of glaze that might still be stuck there, even after putting the Wax Resist on it. So let's do another one here. Again, you have to be very careful. Even the little bit of Wax Resist I'm getting on my fingers from using this brush, you have to be aware of that. This isn't a material where you can wear gloves and it's going to help you do this, because the Wax Resist will stick to the gloves. So it's another reason why making handmade tiles are special, because it's just we don't have the types of machines that big tile companies use to press tiles and glaze tiles. The way in which you can do it when you're doing it by hand. Again, that's what makes handmade tiles special. because we're using glazes that are our own recipe. They have properties to them. They have properties that a big tile company producing lots of tiles will probably decide not to use that type of glaze because it's not going to work with probably the machines that they use to glaze things with, or it's probably a little more time consuming and less cost effective. It doesn't mean that they can't produce different glazes that look different, that have interesting looks to them, that are capable of going through the mass production process of a tile company. But when you're handling each tile by hand, like I do, and I do my tiles by hand, it's a special process. It's something you have to appreciate. And this technique of waxing, getting the edge, is a time-consuming process. Now, you don't have to wax the back of the tile first. You can do the side of the tile first. But again, you have to be aware of your fingers. If you have your little finger sticking out and you brush that wax over that little finger and then you drag it onto the surface of the tile, you could have a problem here. Now, my hands are big enough where I can hold this tile like this, and I've done enough of these where it's easy for me to just hold the tile with my hand and spin it around. Now, if you have smaller hands, or if you're not quite as, if your coordination or your dexterity and your fingers aren't quite as what mine are, you can get a little thing called a banding wheel, which is it's a little tabletop spinning wheel that ceramic artists and other kinds of artists, sculpture artists, put their works on, and they can spin it. So you can set one of these tiles on the banding wheel and spin it around, and then glaze the sides that way, or wax the sides that way. So there's the kind of the basic technique that I'm showing you here, and then I advise you to kind of take what you learned from me and then come up with your own technique that works best for your abilities. So that's how you wax tiles.